Hello, I'm Anneliese from Eye Candy Quilts, and today I'm going to talk about patterns for Me Made May. Specifically, how you get your patterns from the pattern that you receive to getting it cut out of your fabric. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So you have your pattern in hand, you know what size you want to make, or you've gone to your local quilt shop, you found the pattern, you've brought it home that way, or you found the pattern online and you've downloaded it. I tend to do a mix of the two. I go down the wormhole, the internet wormhole, and find patterns that I like, but then they're Norwegian designers or New Zealand designers, and I'm like, well, heck, okay, how do I get those for me? Because I don't live in Norway or New Zealand. So there are local shops in the US that have those patterns, but I've only found them recently, so I'll go over that in a minute. But what I've done and have done for a while is you click the digital download. And this is just like a digital download for a quilt pattern. Is you buy it and you get an email with a link and you have the pattern. But for a garment pattern, it's a little bit different because you have clothing, as we know, does not fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So there are a couple different, if you're buying a pattern digitally, there's a couple different options generally for getting it out of the internet and into your hands. So option one is probably the most cost-effective, but is not my favorite by any means. I just finished doing this. Is something like this, where you print out the pages on a home printer. So it's the file will say something like home printer or something. They'll give instructions, and the pattern for your clothing is broken up into sheets that you then either have to tape or glue together. It's a lot. It's a pain. So this is the pattern for the Wilder gown, and it is just for basically the bodice and sleeve area, and that was 25 sheets of paper that I had to print out and then glue together. Most of them, they're very easy to put together. It's not difficult, it's just tedious, and it's not my favorite thing. But again, it is very easy to do, it is very cost effective. So that's option one. Option two is they'll tend to have something that says like copy shop or print shop file, and it is a giant PDF. So there are printers at the, I go to FedEx, there are printers there, the wide scale printers that will print 30 inches wide. And so that prints out into a roll, something like this. And this is one big sheet of paper. So that's much easier to handle and to deal with, but because you're going to a print shop and you're paying for the specialty materials of using their printer, it is more expensive. I think it cost me around $15 to $20 or more at least. So basically you're buying the pattern all over again in order to print it. No shame to the printing company or to anyone else. Is like, that's just what it costs for them to run their equipment, and I get that. So that is a much easier plan, but not my favorite. So those are the two options. Sorry, as you hear it fall to the ground. Those are the two options for when you get a digital pattern. Let's look at what an actual pattern looks like. Hold on a second. Okay, so I pulled out my copy of the toaster sweater. Yeah, toaster sweaters. And this is what I remember when I was little from doing McCall's and Butterick patterns. It's straight up like beige tissue paper. And this is very nice because it's again, it's like the wide company or the wide format, printer format files that you get down at the coffee shop. Not coffee shop. I can't speak today. This might be a bad thing for a video. Anyway, It's like the big print files you get done at the copy shop, but it's done on tissue paper. So it's much easier to pin through and do various things. However, I will say whether you have a hard copy from an actual pattern, or you've gone to a print shop, or you've gone and printed out your stuff yourself, I do not like, and I never do, cutting directly from the pattern. It's like, because once you cut into this, that is the only size that you can make. So whether or not you change sizes, or you decide that you want a different size when you make it the next time because you don't like how it fits, it's like once you cut into this, then you're done. If you have the print shop, if you've done the digital download and you have a print shop file, or you have a file that you print out yourself and you have, 25, 30 sheets of paper, then you have a little more wiggle room if you saved it to your computer. But you're still having to glue everything all over again, having to print everything all over again. So I never cut from the originals. What I do instead, when I was in college, it was a big sheet of butcher paper. It was white butcher paper, and you just pull, like it was a giant roll on a spindle, and it was this big. And you just pulled it off and tore whatever you needed and made your patterns. Obviously, that's not realistic for you or me. It was like, even though I'm very lucky that I have a sewing space, I do not have space for a giant roll of paper, nor do I really want to. So this is my option one, is tracing paper, which is, I think it's called Swiss tracing paper. Anyway, tracing paper, which is what is done here. So you trace whatever pattern you want, and then you can just keep it with your rolled up file. And then you're not destroying, you cut out your pattern pieces, and you're not destroying your main original pattern every time you cut out your fabric for your garment. That's option one. And tracing paper is, the wide scale tracing paper is fairly easy to find. However, you still have to go out to a store to get it, or get it delivered. My favorite thing to do, this is like the thing I always have in my sewing room, is freezer paper. I use it for a lot of stuff when I quilt, and I use it for tracing my stuff when I make garments. So the thing with freezer paper, it's just like other, heat and bond or any interfacing or something like that, where it's narrower than what you want generally, but it's freezer paper. It's okay. It's only going to cost a couple bucks at the grocery store. You can tape the pieces together to make whatever size you need to make to trace your pattern. So just trace your patterns like normal. Here's some pattern pieces that I have out of freezer paper. They're easy. If something happens to it, it's cheap and it's easy for me to fix. If I want to change the pattern, I can cut this up and make it do what I want and retrace it. I love freezer paper. The other bonus with freezer paper is because it has that wax, or plastic. It always says plastic coated. It's never wax. I don't know exactly what it is. Whatever substance on the shiny side. If I put it, and I have a regular like cotton fabric or something that I know will not be damaged, you probably want to test your iron first. I can iron this to my fabric and then cut it out. So I don't have to always pin it to my fabric, which I'm also a fan of, because sometimes I'm a little bit lazy, and aren't we all? And sometimes lazy is good. So yes, get your patterns ready, and you can print them out. You can do whatever you need to do, but always, always, always trace them before you cut them out. Do not cut them from the originals. So that's my first tip.
Okay, so this is our pattern. So it's here, it's made out of freezer paper. You can see I transferred whatever marks were on the pattern. I've ironed it to my fabric. And I've also pinned it just because I have to stop and go a lot. Everyone knows how it is. Life is a little weird right now. Anyway, my pattern is secured to my fabric. Now, the number one, an easy way to cut out your pattern is just use scissors. It's secured to there, cut out using scissors. But we're quilters. I'm on a rotary cutting mat. You can see here. Yes, it's got paint and other stuff on it because I use my mats for everything. And we all love our rotary cutters. So this is my normal rotary cutter that I use. I'm left-handed, so if that looks weird to you, that's why. It's set up for a lefty. But it's an ergonomic cutter. And what I'm going to do, there's this option, and then there's this cutter, which I always think of as like the lollipop cutter, where it's not The shield doesn't immediately go back when you're not using the blade, and it's just a lollipop. It's easy. So one thing you can do for cutting out your patterns is the lollipop method, and I'm going to use the lollipop rotary cutter. So you show the blade, and you do, I know everyone who uses a rotary cutter is a little scared right now. So you follow the line and you cut out like this. The good thing about this is that your fabric doesn't move, you're not lifting anything up, you don't have any warping when you're going around your piece. So you can see I've got cutting. Sorry, it's hard to do behind the camera at the same time. Anyway, so that's the lollipop method of cutting out your pattern. Again, straight down, like using your lollipop rotary cutter, straight down, just go right along the edge of the pattern. And then there you go. It's easy. Another thing that you can do as far as putting your pattern on the fabric, instead of either pinning it on or ironing it down with freezer paper, use pattern weights. And by pattern weights, I mean anything you have lying around your sewing room. It works. You don't have to pin, and there you go. Okay, so I hope that helped you with cutting out your pattern. Don't forget, first of all, to print off your pattern if you don't have it already, to trace it using either butcher's paper, tracing paper, or my favorite, freezer paper, the quilters and garment sewist's best friend. And then finally, cut out your shapes, and the easiest route, since we're quilters and we love our rotary cutters, use the lollipop method. So, thanks everyone. I'll talk to you next time.